Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey here once again with another video on The Flash. Yes, The Flash. So, throughout the, 9-season run of The Flash on the CW, which came to an end just over a year ago, roughly, which is crazy to think it was that long ago, we had many storylines and plot points take place, whether they were contained within, just one single season or maybe stretched for multiple seasons, maybe even the entire run of the show. But did you know there were various changes and deleting of storylines and plot points that were originally planned for the show and specific seasons? Well, yeah, there was. So in this video, we are going to go over the biggest ones. Now, just a bit of a disclaimer, there are many more than what we'll cover in this video, but there are a lot that are just like minor changes that wouldn't have really impacted too much of the overall storytelling, and you wouldn't have really noticed them, whether they were there or not. So we are just going to talk about the ones of the most interest and the most effect from them not being in the show, or just, even like how they would have changed the show if they were kept in, as well as the remains that are still left in the show in the final product, despite the changes before making the specific seasons. But of course, throughout the video, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below your various thoughts on this stuff. Which of these plot points, or whether just specifically one or a top three, would you have wanted them to keep in the show? I think I can pick at least two of them that I think most people would have wanted, and they probably come in some of the earlier seasons because they would have like lasted throughout the show, I guess. But yeah, let me know your opinions in the comment section down below. And of course, if you're going to enjoy the video and want to show your support, drop a like, takes 2 seconds. And we have changes from all the seasons, from season 1 through to season 9. Obviously, some seasons are going to have more than others, but yeah, there's changes from every single season. So let's start at season 1. So one of the biggest ones, which would have pretty much affected, I guess, especially the earlier seasons, like I'd say the first 2 or 3 seasons specifically, but it might have kept going throughout the show, or at least appeared here or there, is that Barry was going to use his forensic abilities and, his training to determine his enemies' weaknesses and then go on to defeat them. Now, this was changed, so pretty much Team Flash could exist and there was more of a rapport back and forth between them. And if you think about like Cisco and what he did specifically, if like Barry was doing this, Cisco's role almost becomes obsolete. And I think people would have rathered keeping Cisco on the show than having this. Though at the same time, it would have been cool if they kept using this because it was shown in the pilot and it was a bit of an interesting thing. So, I think it's a bit of maybe a win-win for certain people, but maybe a lose-lose for others. Harley Rathaway was also originally a part of Team Flash in the original design, with a back and forth in a bit of a well-mannered rivalry within Star Labs with Cisco, but also, at least to start off with, Harley would have been a bit more concerned with his own career rather than helping the team, and it was believed that Caitlin Snow took over this role once they sort of moved on from Harley Rathaway and having that relationship with Cisco. And the final thing, or the final major thing that was changed in season 1 that definitely would have changed the show in a major way, is that Joe West was actually going to be killed in the first episode, in the pilot episode, not by the first Weather Wizard that we saw, but by the Mist. The Mist was actually going to be the villain for the first episode, and they end up appearing in a later episode. I think it's like episode 3 or 4 or something. Now, this plot point was apparently changed when they cast Jesse L. Martin in the role, and they thought, wow, we can't just waste this great actor. So that was changed in the pilot. And then, of course, because, a pilot was written well before the other episodes, they were able to tinker and include Joe going forward, and of course, he lived right until the end. Season 2, now the big one here is probably around Zoom. So the original plan for Zoom, reportedly, was that he was actually going to be the Earth 2 version of Barry Allen. This then changed when the writers developed the J/Hunter Zolomon twist a bit more, though, and it's sort of clear, I guess, when I explain it, you do still see remnants this with Zoom's backstory and how like they have a bit similar upbringing for the most part, and then there's how like there's one moment that splits the two on different paths. You can easily see where they would have slotted Earth 2 Barry into this storyline. There was also original plans for the J, or the fake J, that ended up being a time remnant of Hunter Zolomon, to actually just be a completely different speedster from Earth 2 who wasn't evil but had like a different moral set to our Earth 1 Barry, but they would eventually become good teammates, then team up to take on Zoom. And you can see that maybe they would have taken this idea and then just shifted it over to Savitar in season 3. Also in season 2, Patty Spivot was supposed to stick around longer. Now we learned later, it was probably like around like season 7 or season 8 of The Flash, in like real life, through the actress who played Patty, that being Chantel Van Senten, that she was at least meant to see out season 2. She said, "I don't know if a whole lot of people know this, but I actually worked it out with my contract so I could finish the whole season and be around. But a showrunner that's no longer on that show was very upset with me, and so he put me on a train all of a sudden, and I left. It was a bummer that somebody allowed their own personal feelings to come in the way of what was best for a story." This was Andrew Kreisberg, for those who don't know, and it's not necessarily confirmed that she would have been in season 3, but she definitely would have stuck around and pretty much until right towards the end of season 2. And it felt weird in the show when she left, and that's the real world explanation. And finally, for season 2, the Man in the Iron Mask was obviously revealed to be the Jay Garrick from Earth 3, this being a doppelganger of Henry Allen of Earth 1. Now, originally, there were plans for this to be the Earth 3 Eddie Thorne. It'd still be called Jay Garrick, but it would look like Eddie Thorne, which itself would have been an Easter egg, as that was an original casting possibility back in season 1 for Rick Cosnett, is that he would have been Jay Garrick. Season 3, the first thing, the rival was originally going to extend further into the season and be a sort of like a reverse Flash or an early sort of, I guess, rival to Wally as he got more used to his kid Flash powers. Now, reportedly, due to Andrew Kreisberg shifting focus to Supergirl and sort of maybe that being his main focus, the season wasn't really fully conceived from start to finish, primarily with subplots. So various aspects like Savitar's supposed plans for Jesse Quick, the museum that was going to be within Star Labs, and other subplots were just really forgotten about or put to the side and thought, oh, we'll try and deal with them if we get enough time later, and they just weren't. This also included the Accelerated Man, so for people wondering why he was sort of just teased and then nothing done really there with him, that's why. And also, Dr. Alchemy was going to return after Julian Albert fell back under Savitar's control with the assistance of the Cult of Savitar, but this was scrapped and he just sort of assisted Team Flash as a member after being freed of his control initially for the rest of the season. Season 4. Now, some of this is pretty known, like I think maybe some of this is maybe more well known because it's a bit more public. Pretty much all of these I think might have actually been reported for the most part by like actual outlets. But both Julian Albert and Tracy Brand were meant to return for season 4. They were literally meant to be there. Specifically for Julian Albert, his return was scrapped due to Tom Felton having schedule clashes due to a play he was doing in between the seasons, though he actually would have been ready in time for the season 4 start of filming, but he was really pushing it, so they just sort of didn't move on with it. It is highly believed that the scrapping of Julian Albert returning led to the introduction of Ralph Dibny, hence why the introduction of Ralph doesn't happen until a handful of episodes into the season. Gypsy was also meant to recur throughout the season, but the actress took up another opportunity on another show, which clashed with The Flash. This was the same with Violet Bean, who played Jesse Quick. So that's why season 4 feels a bit of like a what's going on, because it feels like people leave and there's no real setup for them to leave. And finally, for season 4, due to the success of the two-parters in seasons 2 and 3, those being the Earth 2 Journey and the Gorilla City episodes, season 4 was also planning on having a two-parter episode as well. It was rumored at the time to revolve around Earth 3 and Jay Garrick's legacy. It was rumored it would have been set during the time that Barry was in prison, which makes sense when you look at when like the Gorilla City episodes were specifically in season 3. If you put them into the season 4 episode schedule, it's around the time that Barry was in prison, so that makes sense. Season 5. Now, these aren't the most interesting ones, but you'll look at them and go, okay, I might remember that being a bit weird or that being hinted and nothing really done with that. So Sue Dibny initially was actually going to be introduced as a bit of like a social media influencer slash journalist who pairs up with Iris. This feels like a bit more of a realistic introduction compared to how the character was actually introduced, which is a bit of like a super spy sort of thing going on. Also, there was a character in season 5 you might remember called Spencer Young, who was introduced in like the first half of season 5 that appears while Iris is developing the Central City Citizen. So there are links to that being the true original plans, and she was like this, meta, like what was it, like a tech meta thing that was like could influence. Yeah, it was weird, but you can see the similarities there. Also, the new rogues were partially set up later in season 5, though it was a shell of what it was initially going to be. There was a deleted scene, which some of you might have remembered, with the Weather Wizard recruiting Ragdoll within Iron Heights. No specific details as to why they shifted from this, but we saw a makeshift team later in the season that probably wasn't as good. It's probably nowhere near as good as probably what they were initially going to do early in the season, or at least what they were setting up, but something happened. Season 6, there's only one major thing that I can remember, or at least, also did some research that was actually going to be in the season, and they just scrapped it. There were going to be more new versions of villains seen in previous seasons following Crisis on Infinite Earths. Of course, this would have been in the back half of season of 6. Of course, we saw new versions of characters like the Turtle and Dr. Light, and another that was going to be a metahuman version of Captain Boomerang, most likely Owen Mercer. Of course, we eventually ended up seeing Owen Mercer in the final season of The Flash, but he was originally going to be in season 6. Of course, season 6 was Eric Wallace's first season in charge of The Flash as showrunner, so he was the one to then introduce Owen Mercer in season 9 towards the end, so that makes sense. I actually did lie at the beginning of the video because I said I had something for every single season. I forgot to mention no season 7, but maybe we should just delete season 7 because that season was pretty bad. Anyway, season 8, Tinya Wazo. She was going to go to Argus to be mentored by Cisco in regards to her powers. This was actually filmed, but it was a deleted scene from season 8, so it was filmed and just ultimately scrapped. This would have tied into the comic series for the Arrowverse. It was coming out around the same time. It was highly believed that this was scrapped as they knew they wouldn't be able to get Carlos Valdez, who plays Cisco, for the final season, but nothing really around that side of things was ever confirmed, so that's just a bit of a question mark. And also, Wally was also intended to appear in season 8 for multiple episodes, but they were never able to work out a schedule with Kenan Lonsdale for this, unfortunately. So we don't know if certain characters were left on the wayside because that was the original intention. That's where they sort of like reserved certain characters would be for certain storylines. But yeah, they just weren't able to get Kenan for season 8. And finally, season 9, the final season of The Flash. Now, of course, there were plans for season 10 that Eric Wallace had that would have been set up or just started in season 9 if they knew season 9 was not the final season. But going into season 9, the only major plan that they had, reportedly, was for a 2-episode special that didn't happen. And this was to tie up Legends of Tomorrow, which of course was cancelled after pretty much setting up a massive cliffhanger for their next season. They took a gamble, it didn't work out, they got cancelled. So it would have included Barry and others, we don't know who else specifically, but of course Barry would have been there at least, and it would have involved solving the problem the Legends found themselves in with what ended up being their series finale, as well as giving the characters a proper farewell, and I guess also giving the Flash characters a farewell to the Legends characters. Now, this was scrapped when the Flash was only given 13 episodes for their final season, and Eric Wallace thought they might have been getting 15 or 16 episodes, so this just didn't happen. But yeah, guys, that's all to go over. That's everything that we know, at least all the major deleted stuff that would have definitely had an effect on certain things in the respective seasons, or the show as a whole, especially some of those things earlier on in regards to how a certain character, is managed, or what they do, or just if a character's in the show at all. But yeah, let me know in the comment section down below your various thoughts on this. Which of these deleted storylines or plot points would you have wanted to see on the show? Maybe just leave one, maybe a top 3, I don't know, let me know. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like. Always appreciate the support, and of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.